Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Marketing Your Truth. So, if you've ever been in a place where your business just feels really, really heavy, when you're doing everything that you're being told to do, you're supposed to do, but just nothing seems to be working for you, today's conversation will feel like something that is going to turn the lights back on for you. I'm talking with my friend Wendy Vaughan, a heart centered business success coach with nearly 3 decades of experience in business development. Now, what I love about Wendy is that her work was actually born from a moment when she was literally on the edge of quitting, of giving up. And what she discovered turned everything around for her. I wonder what happened. What did she discover? We're going to get into it today. But since then, her mission has been to help entrepreneurs like you serve from the place of their truth, to reconnect with the difference they're here to make, and build a business that actually feels good. Welcome, Wendy. So glad to have
Thank,
you here.
thank you so much, Ellie. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so before we get into the nitty-gritty of your framework and your methodologies, I want to start with that moment that we just talked about, right? The one that you were really struggling, that you were on the edge of almost giving up and walking away from entrepreneurship altogether. Can you take us back to that moment? What was happening and what did you discover?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. Do you have about 2 hours? No, kidding. So this is the compressed version. So I was fresh out of college, having gotten my master's degree in music. You think music, entrepreneurship. Wait a second. First, ding, 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 yellow flag, right? It's not in business, it's in music. But I had set the intention that I wanted to be a professional musician. And so that's hence the music degree. Well, fell flat. So starting my own business was plan B. Since it was plan B, well, I had zero business skills. I had zero marketing skills. I had zero sales skills. I had basically lived in a practice room practicing. I had social skills. No. Charisma. No, none of that. Gee, Wendy, it's not looking too good, right? And most people were saying, yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is a good move for you. I don't know if any of you, of the listeners, can relate to the helpful friends, right? Saying, oh, I don't know, Wendy, maybe you ought to be a music teacher instead. Well, that wasn't my passion, right? I thought, how hard could it be? I'm an expert. I'm an expert in music. So the business that I started was providing live music for events. We were in Scottsdale, Arizona. Well, there's a lot of events. There's lots of conferences, conventions, weddings. It's weddings, weddings, weddings. So I landed in that kind of space of, wow, there's lots of people that need me, right? So there I was sitting in my home office. Back then, it wasn't cool. Back then, it was like, you need a legitimate office space. But there I was, orange shag carpet, kind of a beat up desk and a creaky chair. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder what I should be doing. Okay, I'm in business. How do I find people? I get clients. How do I do this? Now the reality was setting in. So I hired somebody like you. This was a long time ago before I knew you. So I hired somebody like you. And I then was getting the phone ringing people, and that's what people did. We didn't have internet, email. Yeah, we're 3 decades plus ago. All right, because I took a gap year out, decade to raise kids. So anyway, this was back in the early 90s, late 80s, and so the phone was ringing, and people were excited, and they were wanting to meet with me because of the great marketing messaging that I had put out. And so they would come in and they would meet, and I would tell them all about this group and that group and the string quartet and the brass quintet and the harpists and all this. And I'd say, this is great, Wendy. Thank you so much. We'll get back to you. Out they'd go. Okay. All right. That happened over and over and over and over. And I'm like, my God, what is going on? Nobody's buying. Now, I mean, this isn't sustainable. This is like everybody was saying, Wendy, maybe you had to just become a music teacher. And that truth was starting to like haunt me. It's like, this isn't working. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say to these people. They're leaving. They're not buying, not hiring me, And the thing is, though, I have a very analytical brain and I'm an empath. And so all those opportunities of meeting with my potential clients, I was sensing where they were with me and then where they would kind of drop off, where they were with me a little longer and what I would say that would keep them a little bit. And my brain was like analyzing. Drives my husband nuts. But over the course of about 6 months of no, 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 my brain was busy at work and my heart as well, just feeling. And I made a discovery, literally at the brink of failure, at the brink of like, this is just not working. I'm wasting my time. I'm spinning my wheels. I don't know what I was thinking. This is stupid. It was just like everybody said. But then I got really clear on 4 different like psychological states. I call them emotional, but it's actually a combination of intellectual and emotion that create that space, the feeling that people need to achieve. It's always kind of the weird word to say, but that I need to create the space for people to feel into this so that they have clarity and confidence about making a decision instead of, I need to think about it. Because if they need to think about it, there's uncertainty, right? They're just uncertain. It's not because they were like, yeah, this sounds great. I need to think about it. So there was the gap, right? And so as my brain and my heart discovered, and I started tweaking things, I started getting a yes. Like almost every time people are like, you know what, Wendy, this sounds really great. Let's go ahead and do this. And it just started happening over and over and over. That switch was flipped. And I was like, oh my God, this is working. It's happening. It's happening. And we were providing music for weddings, and I was going out on weekends and watching these beautiful weddings unfold, and people were living their fairy tale day, of dream come true, and it was just happening. There's my group. There's the musician. I walk up to the bride and say, oh my God, this is the best wedding ever. And it was happy. Everything that I envisioned was coming to reality because of that, what I discovered. So I'll share with you and your audience what those 4 things are.
I'm sitting at the edge of my seat right now. Tell me.
So conversationally, authentically, purely you create this state of personal connection. There are 4, like I said. First one is a genuine personal connection with the other person, with the potential client. I mean, genuine. Second is to establish trust. And there are various different ways. I've actually dialed this down into very specific ways to do this, but activate trust. That feeling of, you know what, I think you're legit. You're in this to help me to succeed. I get it. The third psychological state to activate is actually a little bit complex because there's different perspectives here, but it's belief. The belief that, first off, what you're saying is going to happen. What you're promising is going to happen. Secondly, for me. So belief that I, the client, is going to achieve not just what others have achieved or the land of possibilities, but I personally will. I can see that happening. And then, of course, the fourth is desire. And but desire at a level of, oh my God, this is exactly it. This is like a glove that was made for my hand. This is a perfect fit. So and this is what I love helping my clients to embody and embrace, because a lot of this, because I work with coaches and healers, and they do a lot of these things naturally with their clients. just in building belief in themselves, building belief in the possibilities, establishing that trust. I got you. All right. We're in this space together. I got you. And of course, that personal connection, on that level of just genuine care and concern. So I call that compassion-based selling, where it's those four, being intentional about activating those four psychological states within either sales copy or that enrollment conversation. So when I dialed that in, just purely by discovery of being an empath and totally very analytical, literally my business changed practically
I love
overnight.
that. Wow.
And so that was the gift that I gave myself, that I give others. Now that gift of that transformation between just like, I'm putting all this effort out there, I'm doing all these things, but it's still not working. And so that experience of taking that passion and purpose to profitability.
That's amazing. So, connection, trust, belief, and desire. These are the
Mm-hmm.
four psychological triggers that you
Yeah.
build into each of your marketing pieces. So,
Yeah. Just act, just being intentional.
yeah,
It's just being intentional to make sure that each of those are established or activated.
yeah, I love that. So, are they, is there a work that needs to happen prior for them to understand how to? Because when I talk about, for example, connection to people, like we need to have a connection with our audience, or they need to be connected to us. It
Mm-hmm.
could be something that, on some level, it could sound very vague to people. Like, how do I do that? How do I build that
Oh yeah.
connection? And
Right.
similarly with belief, with trust, and ironically,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not surprised that these are the things that you're embedding psychologically into all the marketing pieces, because those are part of also my clients' flywheel as well, because these are necessary pieces. But are there, like, what type of a work does someone need to do prior to even understanding themselves and then bring all of those pieces into their marketing initiatives?
Yeah, and it's just so that we're clear, it's not just the marketing, but it's the actual offers and that sales, the you know asking for the business, right? And getting to that transition where it feels um like that easy next step for somebody to just say, yes, let's do this, I'm excited, let's. So to answer your question, um yeah, it comes down to, for each of those four psychological states, understanding what does activate a personal level of connection. And of course, being a total analytical geek, I have unpacked each of those to, and that's, the work that I love doing with my clients. But in terms of personal connection, it always comes down to uh, asking questions, discovering what it is that matters most and what's at stake and what are they struggling with, and why is that, and then relate. Oh my gosh, I understand. And I experience that same thing, and that can be so devastating, or that can be so frightening, or that relate ability to share with them that what they're going through, but then not just say it, but validate it in terms of like, oh yeah, I hear what you say. I felt the same way, and here's what I found. Some people like to do that by rote. It's just the feel, felt, found
Okay.
formula. And
Yeah.
the why I love working with heart-centered coaches, healers, energy workers, is because they genuinely do care about people. It really is important for them to get to know the other person, whereas in a lot of other different areas or professions, it can be more transactional, right? It's all about just, all right, let's get 5 clients this week, And that's the transactional approach versus the truly, heart-centered approach.
If I understood it correctly, which I'm in 100% in agreement with you. I mean that if that there's no common ground there in terms of the other person on the other side of the transaction, knowing that this person can understand my world. It's really about creating that relatability. Like I relate to your situation. I understand your situation. So is it just helping them know that we understand their situation, or does it go deeper than that? And the second part of that question is, a lot of times when you tell that to people, like, you need to create a common ground, they're like, well, what if what they're going through is not something that I have gone through? How do I create that common ground?
Yeah, well, life is usually lived at a certain level that we all can relate to each other at some level, right? Whether it's just simply achieving a goal, we all know what that space is like, right? Or not achieving a goal. Or so pulling back the lens in terms of, okay, where is the common ground here? Where can I relate to what they're going through? Because we're human, and so life has a way of delivering those opportunities, for pain and growth, and it might look different for everybody, but at the end of the day, it's something that we're all experiencing at some level, that either loss or achievement, love or fear. So it's just a matter of finding that, even if a person is selling like you know uh earbuds, you know what you want earbuds for might be different than what I want earbuds for, but at the end of the day, what does it result in? Happiness. So of course that's a little generic, but I'm just saying there are elements of our lives that do cross.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Now, you did mention when we were talking about those four elements, you said it's not just about marketing pieces or initiatives, it's also how it shows up in your offers. So,
Mm-hmm.
in your opinion or in your experience of helping clients and for yourself, do you, is there like an order that you do these? I'm assuming it goes from connection to trust to belief to desire. Is that like, is there a certain path that people need to go through to be able to um, basically ding, ding, ding those four psychological triggers?
I encourage people to be just authentic, right? Obviously, we're not going to present the offer before, it's just feeling into it, right? There's no rigid process. It's more like feeling into it. I will say though that desire, the want for something does not sustain if there isn't belief.
Yeah.
And belief does not occur if there's not trust. And trust doesn't happen if there isn't that level of personal connection. So in that regard, that's kind of the, how it naturally unfolds. But, it's just like you were mentioning, well, so is there a different level of personal connection? Well, right away, you can go into activating trust by talking about maybe a client that has a similar experience that the person is going through and how you help them to, navigate that. And right there,
Yeah.
you've activated trust and belief. So it's really not that stiff or rigid. It's fluid, in
Yeah.
terms of just having that very intentional but organic conversation. And obviously, when it's in print or it's a marketing piece or something, then there isn't that luxury of having the conversation with the other person. So it's more of a like, well, let me make sure that I'm establishing my trust in this section, and I'm going to say this to build belief in this section, and I'm going to do this. So it's all about alignment and clarity.
Sort of like feeling into where each of these pieces might belong and
Yeah,
authentically just move those
yeah,
pieces in a way that is in resonant with how you talk or how you lean into things
yeah,
or how,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, just that personal, you know alignment. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I know that in your work, you talk about passion a lot, right?
Yep.
And so for a person who, because entrepreneurship, we all know it's hard. You get knocked down so many times. And it's hard to stay connected with that first spark that you had, that passion that you had at the beginning when you're like, "Ooh, I'm gonna go do this thing." Especially if
Hmm.
you're having a hard time when things are all odds are stacked against you. What do you do, or what do you advise your clients to do to consistently stay very close or to reconnect to that passion over and over?
Yeah, that's a great question because it does, um, it can be quite the roller coaster ride, right? To build a business. Even I think for those who have gone and gotten formal training, like an MBA or something, it's still once you step out into the real marketplace, that's when you finally realize what it takes. So for me, I'm always one to um, recommend, and I personally do this as well, just staying very clear and connected with the reason why this work meant something from the very beginning. Just really keeping that for in the forefront and through whatever mode that makes sense for the other person. Maybe it's an image, maybe it's a statement, maybe it's I suggest to my clients have little cameo pictures of all the people, that they've worked with in the past. Because when you ask them to talk about a previous client, they light up just instantly. Oh my God, da 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 da. So when people are like really getting frustrated with, well, I did this, challenge and it da 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 da, and and they're kind of, you can sense the energy. Of course, giving them space. We don't just switch gears really quickly, but talking then about a person that has worked with them that has achieved that, you know, meaningful transformation. And that's what just revives everything. For me, I think back to that time of, when my business was just at that very low flatline place. And within such a short period of time, everything changed so quickly. And just knowing that it can happen again, it will happen again, and that's what I keep my clients connected to, is just that original purpose, that original vision, that original, thing that lit you up.
Yeah, yeah. I know personally that's the thing that I consistently reconnect with to my original why I started, why I do this work. And it is so powerful because when you do that, then because hard times gonna happen no matter how long you've been in business and what your business growth has looked like, you're gonna have up and downs. That's just the nature of running your own business, being an entrepreneur. And knowing that you have that one thing, I call it your lighthouse, to anchor you, in during those times, it is so, so important. I also know that a lot of people don't have, because they're new. Maybe they've been in this space for months, and unfortunately, some people for years,
Mm-hmm.
just trying to get it going. They don't have that client to say, "Ooh, that felt good."
Right.
So thinking about that person, and let's say that right now they're very tired, they're very discouraged, and they're about to give up. If they were sitting with you one on one right now, what is the one truth that you would want them to know or you want to tell them?
Well, that, to reflect back on that message, that clarity, that inspiration, that download, wherever they're at in their spirituality, whether they are spiritual or not, that idea that came to them came from someplace to pursue this as a profession, right? It came from somewhere. And just reconnect with, where did that come from and why was that thought there? What prompted that? Because usually, even if they haven't worked with paid clients, I've heard people say, oh, ever since I was a little girl, all, my sister and my all my friends would come to me and ask me for help and guidance, and I always knew the answers. I always knew the answers. And so just taking them back to what got you to that moment where you said, you know what, I'm going to I'm going to do this as a profession and turn this into my livelihood and life. And so even if they haven't had that paying, you know, clients in an active practice, it still comes down to owning that truth. The truth is they make a difference. Their wisdom, their knowledge, their life experience, their innate qualities makes a difference for others. And whether they think this or not, that's what they're meant to do if it brings them joy. If the idea of it brings you joy and you have the abilities to support somebody, there's no reason you can't have a thriving business with the right strategy, right? And the right alignment, the right messaging. There is no reason. And so just knowing and owning that, getting back to the purity of, yeah, I do make a difference.
Yeah, 100%. I always say it's not an accident that you've decided to step into this entrepreneurship arena and do
Right.
this very thing, or to say to yourself that I'm going to solve this one problem or bring this solution into the market. And a lot of times we're just not aware of the journey that we've been through, we've been on, that has
Yeah,
brought us to where we are today, where, and it's accumulation of a lot of things that got us here, because not everybody has that passion to want to be an entrepreneur. So if you
right.
have that drive, if you have that passion, if you
Exactly.
have that desire, it's not an accident. There's a reason.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. It is not an accident because there are a lot of people, all those people that were telling me, it's like, Wendy, I don't, no, they don't have the spark, right? To be a change maker.
Yeah, 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 exactly. And I love that your blueprint is called Passion Meets Profits. That's
Yes.
amazing.
Well, because our passion is what drives us, right? It's all about having fun, loving our lives, creating a life we love, ease and flow, living a life with passion.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, I mean, when those two come together, can you speak a little bit about that? Like, what do you think? What do you want my audience to understand before they can bring that passion and profit together?
yeah, and we you were leaning into that just a couple moments ago in terms of, when we were talking about that spark or that, what it was. And not everybody has what it takes to be an entrepreneur, but the fact that the idea of monetizing, right? You're not doing it for a hobby. You could, you could volunteer, you could completely gift it, but there's nothing more fulfilling than sustaining ourselves, right? Through our own creativity, through our own gifts of bringing abundance, obviously empowerment to others, but abundance to ourselves. And that's the ultimate gift, is passion and profits for ourselves. And when you gift that to yourself, you can do so much, right?
Wow.
So many things in terms of starting a charity, if you really want to serve underprivileged sectors, there's just so much you can do when you have the profit, the financial stability. And there's just nothing. I mean, when I went from struggling and basically having to give up because this was not a hobby, I mean, it's not a hobby. I wanted to make a living for myself, and having that switch into profitability is such an empowering, freeing experience. And so that's really the essence and the foundation that I build my work upon is just, okay, how do we make this profitable so that I'm not sacrificing or selling out? So that I'm not burning out, so that I'm not hating what I'm doing, so that I'm not, being somebody I'm not, and
Yeah.
so that balance, that alignment. And I know that Ellie, this is all, speaking your language too, is just being fully in alignment with our authenticity and our own truth in a way that also creates success for our business, right?
Yeah,
Because ultimately
100%.
we want to do both.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a lot of noise in the online world in terms of you have to prove your worth. And that you don't hear
Yeah,
it directly like that. But when you hear crap like you have to give away your best stuff and you have to show up, and I mean, this is coming from someone who, has an entire book on service first, right? But the
yeah,
other crap that people say is like, you have to serve and serve and serve. And then when you give a lot of value, and then people will come and they want to pay you. But the truth of the matter is that you're not running your business for your health only. You have to make money. And if
right.
you don't make money, you're not going to be able to go on and help more people. So there's a balance here. And so understanding that you're, like you said, you're not here for charity work. And you have to also take care of yourself. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to go on and help other people. It is
Absolutely.
so important. I know that I can talk to you for hours and hours. We will just scratch the surface because you and
Right.
I truly speak the same language. I know that my listeners would love to know how to find you. So would you please let us know where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that gift that I'm sharing with your audience, the Passion Meets Profit business blueprint, it includes the 4 pillars to create a simple, grounded, easy to run 6-figure business that is not limited and not sacrificing yourself. It's not consuming yourself. So I'm excited to gift that to your audience. And the best place to connect with me and learn more is through my website, and that's impact-maker-coaching.com.
Wonderful. And I'm going to definitely link that Passion to Profit blueprint in the show notes for everyone to get that. And definitely go check it out, grab it. It is phenomenal. Thank you so much, Wendy, for your
Thank you,
time.
Ellie. I
It's,
appreciate you.
I appreciate this conversation as well. Thank you.
Thank you.